All right, Frank, with only 2 more on your list to go after this, number 99 is Revenge. Revenge is a 1990 action crime thriller directed by Tony Scott and starring Kevin Costner, Madeleine Stowe, Anthony Quinn, Tomas Milian, James Gammon, Miguel Ferrer, John Leguizamo, and more. In Revenge, a retired Navy pilot goes to work for a powerful Mexican businessman and ends up falling in love with his young and gorgeous wife, touching off a series of horrific consequences. Your thoughts on Revenge are? I had to give you some Tony Scott. Revenge is beautiful, although note that I've only seen the shorter director's cut and that most theatrical cut copies are full screen. I did get the theatrical cut of Revenge, got it from DVD Netflix, and it is 4:3 pan and scan, and it looks awful. I'm pretty sure they literally took a VHS and ported it over onto the DVD. It looks like garbage. I did end up watching both versions of this film. There's the theatrical cut, or producer's cut, if you will, and then there's a director's cut that came out several years afterwards. The director's cut is the restored version. So if you get it from iTunes or Amazon, rent it from either of those places, that's what you're getting. I didn't check if there's a Blu-ray on this. There might be, but if you get the Blu-ray, that is probably what you're getting, is the director's cut, the Tony Scott director's cut. You can tell because the director's cut is about 20 minutes shorter than the theatrical cut. Now, here's the problem with the 2 cuts of Revenge. The long cut is too long and the short cut is too short. And what I mean by that is the theatrical cut, or the producer's cut, it just feels like it goes on forever. You really start to feel it about halfway through ish. It is slow. It gets really slow at a certain point. The director's cut, though, the problem with it is it literally feels like Tony Scott was like, you know what? People didn't like this film, so I'm going to cut 20 minutes out of it, and then they're going to love it. And the problem is that he cut a lot of the character building moments that you sort of need to round out the film. He cut those out. And when you watch them back to back, which effectively I did, I watched the theatrical cut first and then I watched the director's cut. It's glaringly obvious that, to me, there was not a lot of thought put into, first of all, is there anything that can be done to make this film better? Let's start there. Is cutting chunks out of it really what's going to make it better? My answer would be no, because I've seen what you've done when you just cut chunks out of it. Should they have been more strategic in what they cut? Maybe, but I personally think that the problem starts with the script with this one. I just don't think it was. I don't think that the script was fully there when they started shooting it. And I mean, when you don't have a properly sussed out script, you're not going to get a good movie. It doesn't matter how long it is. It doesn't matter how good the performance is. You're just not going to get a good movie, period. It's hard because it's I can't say to you, you should absolutely watch this version over this version. If you could get the theatrical cut in a version that doesn't look like garbage and is not 4:3 pan and scan, then I would say absolutely watch that. Restored, cleaned up and all that stuff. I would say absolutely watch that one and do not watch the director's cut. But the thing about Revenge is it has such beautiful cinematography in it, that really beautiful Tony Scott cinematography, that it's almost a travesty not to watch the director's cut just so you can see that. That alone is worth the $3.99 and the whatever it is, hour and a half runtime, hour and 40-minute runtime, I think it is. It's unfortunate that the director's cut just isn't very good, though, because you've got a lot of great talent in this, both Kevin Costner and Madeleine Stowe. I mean, Kevin Costner at his prime, Madeleine Stowe is just drop dead gorgeous. I mean, I know I'm probably being, crazy here, but she's just like, and I gotta be honest with you, like, sex scenes in movies, I feel like I don't really even pay that much attention to them. They seem, at a certain point in time, you've kind of seen so many sex scenes in movies, like it doesn't really make a difference. But like the scenes in this film are so erotic. I mean, it's just like, it's powerful. it's powerful. There's one like completely ridiculous scene that they do where Kevin Costner and Madeleine Stowe are driving to this cabin, and Madeleine Stowe is the Mexican businessman's wife that Kevin Costner is sort of like having an affair with. And they're driving in a FJ40 Landcruiser. If you don't know what that is, it's basically kind of like a Jeep. They're driving to this cabin in this Landcruiser, top off, doors off, fully open. And there's a point where she literally like mounts him while he's driving, and it's just like, it's like, it's rare. It's rare that you see a sex scene that like legitimately, after you've seen so many of them, a sex scene in a Hollywood movie that like really makes you like go, wow. And that movie has like more than one of them. So it's, this whole video is going to be about the sex scenes in Revenge. I mean, but that's the thing about it, is like, there are things in this movie that are worthwhile, and there are things that are still in the director's cut that make it worthwhile to see that in HD quality, even though the movie in that presentation is not as good as the theatrical cut. The theatrical cut is definitely the least Tony Scott-like film that you will ever see. And I have a lot of feeling that that's because whoever the producer was or producers or studio that took this on and said, we're going to release our version of this film, and that's the version that the audience is initially going to see. They probably had a pretty heavy hand in that editing. And you notice it very quickly and throughout the whole film. Like, you see these things that like feel like Tony Scott, but are not, and then when you go into the director's version, he's pumped all that stuff up. He's pumped up the color saturation. He's, made the edits quicker. He's put a little bit more of that like Tony Scott, like kinetic energy into it. But again, and this is no dig on Tony Scott. It's no dig on Tony Scott fans, but I just would say that the theatrical cut is the better version. I just wish it was available in a high definition restored version, the way that the director's cut is. The one thing that I will say about this film is like, it gets pretty brutal. At one point, there's a scene that takes place. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to say where or at what point in time in the film it does take place. But there is one scene that's like, it gets pretty brutal, and for anybody who this is a problem for, they do at one point kill a dog on screen, and it's not pretty. I mean, obviously it's fake. They're not doing it for real, but there are some people who, cannot separate that. And I want to say up front, it's like, if you're watching this and you're thinking about watching Revenge and you have a problem with seeing violence against animals on screen, it's like, you probably, even though it's one instance, maybe you don't want to see this movie. Because even I am able to separate that in my mind. And even I was like, oh, wow, they killed that dog. Like, they killed that dog, so it gets like, there's some pretty serious brutality in this movie. And that if that's not your thing, then Revenge is probably not your thing. So would I recommend this? Man, I don't know. I would say that I would mainly recommend this for the Tony Scott completist, because I feel like you're probably going to watch both versions anyway, because you want to see everything that he did. But what I will say is, like, if you're somebody who's just casually looking for a film, the fact that there's two versions out there and both of them have problems, their own issues, I would say like, just probably don't mess with Revenge. You know, there's plenty of other great movies and Tony Scott's done better movies. There's nowhere near his worst. It's probably like in the middle, you know, maybe middle to low, but ultimately it's like tracking down the theatrical cut, unless you can get the DVD, which is far out of print, is kind of a pain in the butt. And also, again, it looks like garbage and it's 4:3. The hoops that you have to jump through just isn't worth it. And then you watch the director's cut and it's just not very good. So ultimately, I am going to say no, I do not recommend this. All right, next up on your list, Frank, is number 100. It's another Tony Scott film, Beverly Hills Cop 2. So I actually just recently watched the first Beverly Hills Cop for the first time. And I am looking forward to this one. I know that I've heard that it's supposed to be a great sequel to the original and obviously far superior to the flaming pile of trash that is Beverly Hills Cop 3. So until next time, Frank and anybody else who's watching, you can like, comment, share, subscribe on all that stuff. And I will see you in the next one.